Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to TMRP on Metropolis Radio, and last week was the start of Star Wars Celebration. That just came to an end this prior Monday, so that would have been April 10th for those of you listening to this in the future. And not a whole lot came out. I thought that this week we were going to just, jam-packed. It was going to be everything. We were going to talk about everything that was announced at Star Wars Celebration. But truth be told, I'm not really interested in, Young Jedi Adventures or Tales of the Jedi or even the new Ahsoka series. But I do want to talk about the new movies that were announced. And I think it is perfectly hilarious. I think it's absolutely hilarious that Disney Lucasfilm believes that Rey is going to save Star Wars from the absolute shitstorm that it has become. And I am not joking you. This article from the Hollywood Reporter. Star Wars new movies from James Mangold, Dave Filoni in the works, and Daisy Ridley will star in one from Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Now, for those of you that don't recognize the name Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, she was directing the Star Wars movie that was originally being written by Damon Lindelof before he left. And I believe Stephen Knight, the showrunner, the creator of Peaky Blinders, took over writing duties for that movie. Star Wars movies are back. After several years of Star Wars focusing on TV shows and the movies being dormant, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy shook up fandom by revealing that 3 new movies were in the works. James Mangold, Dave Filoni, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy will direct 3 new Star Wars features, Kennedy announced at Star Wars Celebration held in London. And with great fanfare, I find that a little hard to believe. And to the utter delight of the rapt and screaming crowd in the Excel Convention Center, it was also revealed that Daisy Ridley was returning to the Star Wars universe and would star in the feature to be helmed by Obaid-Chinoy. Kennedy said that the company was working on expanding the mythological timeline created by George Lucas by pushing forward, backward, and sideways. Mangold's movie is to be set in the deep past, while Obaid-Chinoy's is set 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker, the last Star Wars movie. So the movie that Damon Lindelof was writing and that Obaid-Chinoy is directing, is that going to be Star Wars Episode 10? Because that's what it's sounding like. The movie is set 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker, and if we jump over to this article from Variety, Daisy Ridley's new Star Wars movie will find the Jedi in disarray 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. Luke Skywalker Force Ghost is to be determined. Where was it in here? Where was it? We're 15 years out from right. So here's where it is. Here's what Kathy Kennedy said about the movie. Quote, sorry for all the dead air. Quote, we're 15 years out from Rise of Skywalker, so we're post-war, post-First Order, and the Jedi are in disarray. Kennedy confirmed. There's a lot of discussion around who are the Jedi, what are they doing, what's the state of the galaxy. She's attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order based on the books, based on what she promised Luke. So that's where we're going. So once again, is the movie that Damon Lindelof was writing now being written by Stephen Knight, directed by Obaid-Chinoy? Is that going to be Star Wars Episode 10? Because if it's going to be Star Wars Episode 10, they're in for a very rude awakening, because it's not like the sequel trilogy was all that received, with even MSM, even mainstream media now coming out and basically saying it. This article from The Guardian, the Star Wars sequel trilogy was a galactic mess. Who should take the blame? And this was written back on September 2nd of 2022. Rian Johnson has defended his contribution to the series, and he's right. It wasn't his fault. They were an incoherent failure, and they're not wrong. Okay, the sequel trilogy being bumblefucked is not Rian Johnson's fault, right? Rian Johnson, I have always maintained this, that Rian Johnson was absolutely the patsy. He was the fall guy. If you look at J.J. Abrams and his track record, right, that man was credited with killing Star Trek in 2 movies. So now he jumps over to Star Wars. He's going to direct Episode 7, but he's going to pass off Episode 8 to somebody else. Episode 8 comes along, gets completely bumblefucked. And now J.J. Abrams is coming back to direct Episode 9. Now J.J. Abrams is our Lord and Savior. He's gonna fix Star Wars. He's gonna fix Star Wars. Something that Rian Johnson ruined. Blah 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 blah. even though J.J. Abrams probably had a lot more to do with the sequel trilogy being a mess than he really cares to let on. But just conveniently ignore that fact, right? So let's get back here. I know that I've tangented. Here we go. Filoni's feature is to be set in the so-called present, as it will act as a climactic event for the current Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and the upcoming Ahsoka. Filoni is an executive producer and creative guide on the series. No timeline on the release was given. Here's the problem with Dave Filoni's feature film, is that they're turning Star Wars into the MCU. Right, if I have to watch 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, and we will be getting to The Mandalorian later today, because that actually warrants its own separate video, but still, if I have to watch all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, I have to watch The Book of Boba Fett, aka Mandalorian Season 2.5, and I have to watch Ahsoka, and I have to watch Obi-Wan, and I have to watch Andor, so on and so forth, right? Is the movie going to actually follow all of the shows, or is it only going to be a select few? Right, the MCU, for better or for worse, and I'm not here to debate this topic right here, right now. This is a separate debate for another time. But at least all of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus are interconnected. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, so on and so forth. Those are all at least interconnected. The problem with the Star Wars shows is that The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka are connected. But is Obi-Wan connected to those? Is Andor connected to those? Or are Obi-Wan and Andor their own separate thing? Right? Does the Mandalorian connect to the Clone Wars? I think it does connect to the Clone Wars. But see, good luck trying to keep up with what shows are connected and what shows are their own standalones. Like I said, good luck trying to keep up with that. Mangold described his project as a quote-unquote biblical epic that would look at the origins of the Force and be set 25,000 years before any of the timelines and stories told by the movies and shows so far. Quote, when I started talking to Kathy about doing one of these pictures, what occurred to me was thinking about what kind of genre of movie within Star Wars I wanted to do, he said. And I thought about a biblical epic, like a 10 Commandments, about the dawning of the Force. Where did the Force come from? When did we discover it? When did we learn how to use it? Obaid-Chinoy, meanwhile, said she's attracted to the idea of the hero's journey and was keen on immersing herself in a focus on a Jedi Academy and a Jedi Master. Quote, I have spent the better part of my life meeting real heroes who are overcoming oppressive regimes and battling impossible odds, and I think that is the heart of Star Wars, she said. Ridley, for her part, didn't reveal too much, but did say she, quote-unquote, was thrilled to be continuing this journey. Her character, Rey, finished the 2019 movie by taking on the last name of Skywalker, a nod to the carrying on the legacy of Luke and Leia Skywalker as she became a fully realized Jedi. Yeah, let's also not forget that she buried Luke's lightsaber at the one place that he wanted to get away from. Right, just putting that out there. Star Wars movies have been conspicuously absent from the big screen since the end of 2019 when Disney and Lucasfilm released Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker. Well, yeah, that's because the movies were an absolute fucking shit show. With fans unafraid to voice their less than enthusiastic reception for Rise of Skywalker and 2017's Last Jedi, as well as the bombing of the 2018 standalone movie Solo, Lucasfilm froze its movie development and its plans of yearly releasing them in carbonite. The feature product it did try to launch, meanwhile, got stuck in the tractor beam of development hell and creative differences. Rogue Squadron from Patty Jenkins, movies from Rian Johnson, a trilogy from the Game of Thrones series creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. I forgot about Weiss and Benioff's Star Wars. One from Taika Waititi, one from Kevin Feige, came and went or are on burners so far back they are in entirely different kitchens. However, the company has never stopped developing projects. It just tried to do it under heavy secrecy. And with some of the Star Wars TV series not living up to the expectations set by the high bar of The Mandalorian, and I would like to add an asterisk to that Mandalorian, okay, the asterisk being The Mandalorian Season 1. Because Season 2, many people said was a massive drop in quality. And you know what? I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Like I said, we will be getting to The Mandalorian later today because I feel that The Mandalorian does warrant its own video. Lucasfilm and Disney made it a point to redouble its movie efforts. Sources even say the company was mandated to shift focus on diversifying its non-Star Wars slate. It recently did not move forward on a second season of Fantasy Willow and go back to the galaxy far, far away. Well, yeah, who honestly thought that a Willow series would work? Right, it was a sword and sorcery movie that came out in the late 80s. Honestly, Lucasfilm would have been better off making Willow 2 and not turn it into an actual television series. And what I find really, really funny about all about this news that new movies are in the works is that on April 10th, right, this article from Comic Book Resources came out and said Lucasfilm boss says new Star Wars films are quote unquote pretty far along. Right, I find this really funny, given the fact that, Rogue One was announced and then later canceled, despite there being a lot of fanfare. Benioff and Weiss's Star Wars is pretty much dead. The Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy is all but fucking dead at this point. So you have news of all these, new movies are coming from James Mangold, Dave Filoni, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's movie. Could possibly be Star Wars Episode 10. But don't worry, guys. These movies are pretty far along because Kathy Kennedy, Pinky promised, Pinky swore that these new Star Wars movies are pretty far along. Just conveniently forget about Benioff and Weiss's Star Wars movie, about Rogue Squadron, about Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy, about Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie, and about Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie. No. Those never existed. Those came from an alternate dimension. Those weren't real. But these three that we are announcing right here, right now, we pinky swear that these are actually going to be made. And I'm gonna end off this segment with this. Am I excited for these new Star Wars movies? No, not really, because my bet is they are going to be quietly canceled months down the road, and we're never going to hear about them for another 2-3 years, and then it never worked out because that's what history is dictating. So with these new movies, for me personally, if they do exist, you're gonna have to actually show them to me, right? I have to wait to be seen because it goes back to fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.